Next panel, we have Armin Ebrahimi, Priti Kasaredi, and McLean Wilkinson. And this panel will be moderated by Mr. Bill O'Connor. And after the last panel, we will be having a raffle session where we're going to select 3 winners to actually get tokens sponsored by SmartX. So to enter the raffle, please put your business card in the raffle jar over there. Our staff will walk around this venue. So if you haven't put your business card when you check in, feel free to do so. And we will be having the raffle after the last panel. And welcome the speakers. Continue to send your questions upstage.
Okay, you guys ready?
Yep.
Can you hear me? I'm from New York, so I talk loud and fast. So feel free to make an obscene gesture at me if I do either of those too much, okay? Bill O'Connor, really excited to be here. I'm an innovation consultant and strategist in San Francisco. I was the innovation strategist at Autodesk, a big tech company in San Francisco for about 7 years. What a great topic. The development of blockchain technology. I'm here not just also as a moderator, getting the great insights out of these guys. I'm also here to learn. I'm on the board of an interesting blockchain-related company called UToken, and also the founder of another big data company. And it occurred to me only in the last 3 months that blockchain ramifications for our offering. So I'm here to learn as much as these guys are. I'm here to learn from you guys. I'm excited about that. So. You know, technology revolutions, we do them pretty well in Silicon Valley. I think at the beginning of any kind of a sort of a revolution like this, it's important to also look at the challenges, the limitations, the roadblocks, the things that are going to be super annoying 2 years from now, the problems, et cetera, et cetera. And so my goal as the moderator for the next 28 minutes is to get as many good insights and advice and next practices from you guys out to the crowd. Does that make sense? Does that sound good? All right. Is anybody out there? Clap if you're out there. Everyone. I'm still out there. So I'm going to let, whenever I'm introduced, my bio is always kind of butchered for some reason, so I'm going to let these fine folks give you a quick introduction about each of them, 1, 2, 3, and then we'll dive into the topics.
My name is Priti Kasaredi. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called True Story, and we're basically building a truth layer for the blockchain where we validate information in a decentralized way and make it accessible to the blockchain. My background, I was previously at Goldman Sachs, and then I was a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, and then most recently I was an engineer at Coinbase.
Andreessen Horowitz, I'm not familiar. Could you? I'll be adding bad jokes once every 4 or 5. That's the last one.
My name is Armin Ebrahimi. I'm the founder and CEO of Shortcard. I've been in the tech industry for about 30 years, and some of the highlights of just my background. I've had 2 companies, one that I exited and sold to HP, and another one more recently that I actually sold to AOL. I also spent 10 years at Yahoo as the head of platform engineering. 3 years ago we started Showcard, and the concept behind Showcard is creating a digital identity that belongs to the user, the data being on their own devices with private keys and so forth that they actually own. They can decide who they share that with, and having the validation codes that verifies that through certifications and signatures on the blockchain. And that would being able to have a unified identification and control of the user as to how they share that and how they access different services.
Thank you.
My name is McLean Wilkinson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a crypto project called NewCipher. We are basically a privacy layer for public blockchain and decentralized applications. We give developers a way to store, share, and manage private data on public file systems like IPFS or Swarm. We're fortunate to be backed by crypto funds like Polychain, FBG, and Y Combinator. My background personally is sort of a blend of software engineering as well as traditional finance. Worked at Morgan Stanley for a couple years covering tech, AV, and telcos on the M&A side. Decided I would rather do stuff in blockchain space and build actual technology or products as opposed to financial models. So we came out here about 4 years ago now and started working in blockchain.
Okay, great. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you guys for coming out. Okay, so my questions are in sort of increasing order of complexity, okay? Let's start with some of the basics, right? Security and privacy, right? So you know, to some degree, part of the excitement is about some of the inherent nature of it is hard to hack to some degree, we know about that. And yet, you think about all the different types of data that are going to be interfaced with blockchain. Security is obviously a concern for people, both experts in that. So I want to throw it out to the floor to talk about security and privacy, with also the caveat that technology is always an arms race. I mean, I've been immersing myself in this, and it's like, wait a minute, you know, as much as it's secure now, other people are trying to make it unsecure. So address both those things, privacy and security sort of in general, and also the nature of keeping it safe as it incorporates all this data and the ongoing arms race. So, who wants to dive in?
Sure, I guess this is kind of in my wheelhouse. I would sort of break it down into two different areas. One would be like transaction privacy, which is obviously the focus of privacy coins like Monero, Dash, Zcash, Wibble. There's a lot of different approaches. And then also like data privacy, so people actually building decentralized applications, how they manage potentially private or sensitive data. I'd say that the former is obviously much more mature. You know, we have multiple live privacy coins that are being used in production today. You know, obviously we're looking at putting ZK snarks into Ethereum itself. Where I spend most of my time is obviously on the latter, so helping give developers a way to actually store and manage private data. So this could be health records, you know, customer names, addresses, these sorts of things inside of a decentralized application. Our approach is one of probably several kind of emerging approaches. We use a technology called proxy re-encryption. Other popular approaches would be things like multi-party computation or homomorphic encryption, kind of like the three big buckets. But we're sort of all trying to solve this fundamental problem of, you know, enabling this new wave of various sort of futuristic decentralized applications. So projects that are looking to store, let's say, medical records on IPFS, they need some way to have those records obviously be private, confidential, and encrypted, but still have those encrypted records be shareable with, say, a doctor or a hospital or some valid recipient. And I think there's a lot of interesting work being done on that side as well.
Okay, great. You guys?
Your question was a great one, and you know the whole question about it being an arms race. I think blockchain is still rather new, and there are only limited number of real live applications that are on the blockchain. So therefore, there's going to be time before hackers start getting in. They're going after cryptocurrencies, the hackers are, because that's where the real applications are, at least large scale applications. So I think we'll see more of that obviously as time goes on. The arms race will be. One of the things that's important to acknowledge about blockchains is that it's an infrastructure that's got an architecture that allows you to have security, that allows you to have a better, privacy. But you still have to architect something on top of it that takes care of that. You could, instead of hashing actual data, if you start putting real data on the blockchain, there's nothing about the blockchain that would inherently prevent you from doing that, and that's accessible from anywhere. People could actually look at data that you cannot delete, is immutable. So you have to be conscious of those things. One of the approaches we've taken is in terms of what we put on the blockchain, is that we use it for verification purposes only. The data is in different storage. It's still encrypted, typically with users or service providers. And we only put basically digital signatures of hashes of data, and hashes that are one-way hashes. You can't reverse engineer it back. In general, we caution around putting encrypted data on an immutable ledger. Because if you have that, you ever lose the keys, or the keys are compromised, well, then the data is available for everyone to look at. So I think it comes down to, you still got to architect the solution. There's no magic of, oh, I use blockchain, boom, I'm secure.
What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting issue, right? Like, we want privacy, but we want decentralization. And when you want decentralization, you have to kind of open up the ledger to everyone so that it's much more visible and validatable. And so I think if we're trying to move to a decentralized and private blockchain, it's a lot of engineering fundamentally, and like that's why centralized systems work so well, because they can maintain all these properties that we care about: privacy, convenience, security. But as soon as you decentralize, you make trade-offs. So it's interesting watching this space, and I think in terms of privacy, I'm seeing a lot happening in layer 2, where people are using either just storing a lot less on the blockchain and doing a lot more in layer 2. That way, you only use the blockchain for settlement and kind of like the stuff that you want preserved over the long run, which I think is how we should think about the blockchain anyway, because the blockchain is like this immutable record, and that's kind of like the holy grail, but there's a lot you can do to use this blockchain as a fundamental layer, but still do stuff in the layer on top and have some of the features that you care about, like privacy.
And then address that, like, okay, immutable sounds good at one level, also terrifying at a different level. How do you address that idea? I mean, if there's an element of permanent or immutable, how do you sync that up with privacy concerns?
I think she actually nailed it in terms of you got to be careful what you put and when you put it. So I think the immutability has a lot of value in terms of security, authentication, the trust you can create with that. Which means someone can't just go in and mock with that, change it somehow. But you have to be careful what you put in an immutable record and a public ledger, because everyone can see it. So the trade-off is actually in the architecture of what you build. You're not going to put everything, your only source of data cannot be a blockchain and have secure, sensitive data on the blockchain that everyone can go in and eventually see. So you got to architect it right. The immutability is actually an incredible asset. Our product uses it, and I think without it, it would make it very difficult for us to do that. But you got to decide what things you keep off and what things you keep on the blockchain.
Yeah. I think you hit on a very sort of interesting tension there between this idea of immutability and then not only from a technical perspective, also from a public policy perspective. In Europe, we have GDPR and the right to be forgotten, which put something on the blockchain, you can't forget it. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds and whether regulators are kind of forced to reevaluate their approach, or if they decide that they're going to crack down on companies that are putting things onto immutable ledgers that by law need to be revocable in some way. But I agree with the point just made that you should be, particularly if it's bulk data, you should be putting a lot of data on the blockchain anyway, because it's not a particularly good data store. That's why we have things like IPFS or Swarm or these high-level file systems.
Okay, that's a good distinction. All right, let's move to scalability. And I love this one because it's like a Zen koan in a way. It's like, okay, proof of work and it's purposefully slow and all this stuff. And by the way, I'm stealing shamelessly from an article that you wrote on Medium, so thank you for that, among other things, right? I found it much clearer than a lot of other articles on things. But so scalability, the idea that, the beauty of this is that there are inherent safeguards broken around the timing, using time as a safeguard. How then do you scale, given that those are some of the inherent features? Maybe I'll start off with you.
Yeah. Fundamentally, just to take a step back, the reasons blockchains don't scale is because it's not a distributed database, but it's a replicated database. So everyone's maintaining a copy, and everyone has to update it at the same time and validate it at the same time, and so that's why it slows it down. Now, the reason we do that again is because we want to decentralize this thing and not have it centralized. And so if we're making that trade-off, then there's various things we can do to reach scalability. And I kind of talked about in that article, one way that's already in terms of production is state channels. So state channels is again layer 2. And I think again, the answer keeps coming back to layer 2. It's we can't do everything on the blockchain, guys. Let's go above a layer. And layer 2 state channels are basically you open a channel and you do a lot of microtransactions, and you only go to the blockchain when you just settle the final amount amongst the two people. And so that's one idea of one way to do scalability. So instead of hitting the blockchain for every transaction, you do it in another private channel and then hit it at the end. Another way to scale blockchains is by what's called sharding. In a traditional database role, sharding is when you distribute the load across multiple different servers. So now we're going back to a traditional architecture. Let's figure out how to shard this and still make it secure. And this is a really, really hard thing to do. I don't know, do you want to talk about other approaches?
Sure, I think the concepts you talked about are absolutely correct. I think some of the blockchains that we've had the most popular ones, Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example, you will like 7 transactions a second theoretically, realistically being around 3 or 4, and Ethereum being around 20 and realistically lower than that. The other part of it is the fees of transactions. 2 years ago when we first did had the first production version of our product, it would cost like 2 to 3 cents on Bitcoin to write a transaction and about 10 minutes to get a confirmation. Now it could range anywhere from $5 to $8 all the way up to $28, $30. And the transactions we do cost less than that. The revenue we get on those things is significantly less, so it just makes it unfeasible to go that route. So ultimately, and then the other problem is that these are, the blockchain itself is a database. It's got to load on one machine. All these different transactions from various points, places are on there. It's not practical to put too much data on it, and on Bitcoin, you'd be limited to the number of characters you could put on. Ethereum, you got more room, but even that is limited. So ultimately, you got to have, the second layer is you're talking about it. Ultimately, we use sidechains where we do transactions on that. We do what's called box carding, where it's similar in concept, but we get multiple transactions with box card either by time or number of transactions, create a hash of that proof of work on the public blockchain. What's nice about the more popular public blockchains is that you can establish a greater trust with those. Rather than saying, well, I tell you what, they got a high-scale private sidechain or whatever form blockchain that I have, can you trust me on it? So you can use the public blockchains, you just get smart as to how you utilize that. And it goes back into, if you look at a lot of blockchain projects, they are very theoretical in nature. They were not, at best they've done a POC, very small scale things, and they haven't really delved into the architectural issues of it. It goes back to the first question. You got the blockchain, you've got this asset, but you still got to architect a solution for it, and there are other providers that will act, we're building our own, but I think over time we'll have other providers actually will provide different infrastructure to support, and I think that's part of what you do is
The ecosystem will build up.
we'll build parts of it, but I would also still warn, you can't just expect that, the problem's going to solve itself. If you look back in the late 90s, there were providers that would say, we'll provide high graphics on our webpages, right, and some video content and so on. But there was no bandwidth to allow it to run. And I remember many websites that would say, it'll come. And it eventually came. But by the time it came, they were no longer in business because they didn't survive it. You look at, like what we were doing at Yahoo was very little graphics, using simpler pages, just so that they could load faster and get the content out. So I think you have to be adaptable to the changes of the industry as you build your applications to deal with things like scale. But there will be more solutions that will come. But even today, you could do high-scale transactions using the blockchains. You just got to architect that.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they covered a lot of it. Also we're seeing a lot of projects that are.
And then you've got a lot of companies that are building vertical solutions or horizontal solutions, but particular area they're saying we're solving this, we're using blockchain-based solutions for that to do it as well. And there's not enough infrastructure in place yet, so I think that's where a lot of those people implementing those various solutions still have to develop on. We've developed a lot of those ourselves, just the tool set has not been available. I think you still have to do that because part of the thing we're still challenged with is being able to get blockchain solutions out there beyond POCs and pilots. Even with us, we have far more many POCs and pilots than we do live customers. And we've got live customers, but they're far fewer than if it was a different kind of a company, and that's just part of the blockchain adoption path. So if you are just waiting for the infrastructure to be built up, again, you could go back to the same example I gave. You could be out of business before you have the infrastructure to be able to solve your problem.
Web businesses were built by people who were annoyed that the thing wasn't there.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. They want to solve their own problems, and
they annoy people at the office at
exactly.
7 o'clock at night.
That's right. Yeah. Right. So I think that's part of what we'll see in the evolution is that people are solving their own real problems, and the closer they are to solving real applications and real problems, the better set of solutions that they'll actually develop in that process. And I think we'll see those then spinning off as things that other people will end up using, either by seeing it as a blueprint of what to build, or sometimes we're spinning out as separate solutions that go out.
I'm going to jump to the next topic of access. This is fascinating to me because I love the media. Every article you read now, blockchain is going to change every single industry on it. In fact, it's already doing it. And when you get Stephen Colbert and Bill Maher joking about it, you know it's big, right? But I want to talk about access. What's fascinating in blockchain, medical records, financial, military, government, personal, blah, 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 blah. So I'm curious myself, how on earth do we bridge the gap between blockchain per se, and then if you just go health, financial, military, like how does it bridge out to all of the industries that's purportedly going to change? I mean, that's a good problem to have. If you're going to have universal impact, but how do you bridge to those specific types of information? In 30 seconds or less. Go.
When you say bridge, I guess can you explain what you're
I don't even know if I mean that. I mean as blockchain, Schroeder's even the world, right?
Yeah.
As blockchain eats the world, how is it going to I'll change my metaphor, how's it going to digest all these different types of data?
Yeah, so I think of it less of like, let's apply blockchain to this, because I think of it more of like, do you have a problem and does blockchain help solve that problem better? And in some industries it will be astronomically yes, and in some industries it will be probably no. And I think that's how you should think about it. Like someone walked up to me today, not to like shame that person, but he was like, I want to solve this using blockchain. And it was just like, all right, does it need to be solved using blockchain? Why do you think a blockchain is better, etc.? So I think these industries that want to blockchainify their things, I think some of them will need more of it than others, and some of it will be less.
I thought blockchain was like a household cleaner, like meth or something that will get 99% of germs.
Yeah, this seems to happen with every technology. Like even with AI 2-3 years ago, everyone would be like, yeah, this was AI with this with AI, and then like now that kind of disappeared. I think the same thing will happen with blockchain.
Back in the day, the web, it was the same thing.
And blockchain will almost be like a enabling feature.
Yeah.
I think just to kind of second what you said, and I'll add on a bit to that, is blockchain is an infrastructure, it's not a solution, and that's an important distinction to make there. Over the past year, especially since 2017, with pricing cryptocurrencies and ICOs, there's been a lot more attention to blockchains. And people understand it a lot more, and that's where we get a lot more customers to say, oh, we need a blockchain solution. And they don't really understand it well, they just feel like something's going to happen there, and they get to do something using blockchain. We tend to, and we learned this a couple of years ago when we first got into the industry, is that we're an identity management platform. Here's the specific things we allow. We do actually help out with regards to better control for access to data, being able to lower fraud, making it easier for users to access things, making it more secure. That's what our value proposition is. But the challenge is that you can't do that using traditional systems, so we explain we use the blockchain to do that. And we've had people who say, oh, do we have to have miners? Like, I've had banks that say, do we need to hire our own miners? It's like, no, you don't need to worry about the blockchain you manage. You need to understand it. But the thing is, you guarded away from a lot of that. You need to really focus on what the solutions are. I think there are a lot of solutions in terms of access. If we're talking about in healthcare, in finance, in travel, a bunch of different verticals, they're not all going to happen together. You're going to have those early adopters. Some are pushed because of the vertical they're in. I think in finance, there's a greater push, acceptance, and understanding of it. I think healthcare is a little bit slower in the process, but they will come along. But those early adopters and their successes will actually pave the way for others. And I think the solutions that get out there, I think to your point earlier, is it's not that magic blockchain sprayer that solves 99% of the problems, but it's the solutions that focus on solving a real problem, and they're enhanced by using blockchain.
Very good.
And this is maybe a little bit of a cop-out. When I put on my engineering hat, it's a lot easier to look at the landscape and sort of identify where the infrastructure gaps are than it is to sort of try to figure out what the end-user-facing apps that are going to be most successful, most compelling are. And I think there's a tendency when there's sort of a new computing environment to just sort of take stuff from, let's say, the web app world and sort of graft it onto a blockchain, but with a token. And I don't think, in most cases, that's not particularly interesting. It takes a while for sort of a new industry to kind of figure out what are the most compelling sort of native use cases. It's the same when the smartphones came around. It took a while for people to figure out that it made a lot of sense just to be able to pull your phone out and call a taxi or call an Uber on the side of the road, which obviously it makes sense to have Uber sort of on your desktop. So I think to some degree, hopefully that'll end up being the case with blockchain, because if it's not, then we're all sort of out of luck. We've seen a little bit of it, I think, with like digital scarcity. So like, some people might say there's trivial applications, but things like CryptoKitties or things are somehow making digital assets scarce, like collectibles and things like that.
Okay. All right, we have 3 minutes to go. Again, this is the lightning round. Okay. This one thing I'm really fascinated with. Like, I think that this time in human history, probably it's the most disruptive emerging technologies aligned together that I've ever seen. Certainly more than the web, for example. So I'm going to throw 3 disruptive emerging technologies at you, and I would phrase it this way, and answer whichever is most interesting in the 2.5 minutes we have to go. How is blockchain going to affect the IoT, Internet of Things, and/or how is it going to interact with AI? And something else I'm fascinated with is how is quantum down the line, in 9 seconds or less. So, pick any of the 3, IoT, AI, or quantum. What do you see? What's the most interesting thing you could see happening moving forward? Anyone dive in?
I mean, the most crazy futuristic thing, I guess, would be AI-controlled DAO. So a decentralized organization that's fully controlled and run by an AI. Is able to sort of earn money and sustain itself.
You can hire and fire people and entities, autonomous organizations.
Yep, or even just contracting with other AIs that are other DAOs.
And then we just kick back. Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully.
I would, and I say this first partly based on the experiences that I've had and folks we work with, but I think IoT is one of those areas that is still in its infancy and is going to incredibly grow. Managing and controlling those devices that are not human beings, in fact, is one of those things that requires a different infrastructure in place. And we've been working with IoT providers where I think blockchain-based solutions can actually be fundamentally critical to their operation, especially when you're dealing with the mass number of devices and the different people or services that actually interact with them. I think we'll see a lot in that.
That's a good point. And once you pick your technology, what do you get the last word?
I think I'm in the same boat with IoT. I think distributed, because now you have all these devices that are distributed across the world with IoT, you can also think of them as basically computing devices that add more compute power to the blockchain. So I think that's a very interesting way to think about IoT. I think that was one of the original founding visions of 21Co, but they never really pulled it off, where they were trying to use cell phone devices as blockchain mining equipment. So I think if you can pull that off with IoT, I would be fascinated by it.
That's cool. We don't have time for me to reference Pied Piper from Silicon Valley and the distributed internet. I just did that, or whatever. Okay, I think we got 4 minutes to go. Thank you. I think we have some questions. Do we have questions? What's that?
We have to move on because we're running out of time.
Well, the crowd has no questions. Everything is solved, right? Let's give the panelists a big hand. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great time.
Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I encourage you to talk to the speakers in person when they get off stage. Thank you for joining us. And the next